Mark Cuban, I don't know if you remember, he chugged the whole can of strawberry. And he actually said, oh, I hate kombucha. This is great. I love the strawberry passion. I already finished it. As soon as he said that, our strawberry passion sales just like shut up.
Welcome to the Startup CPG podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Freitag. In case you missed it, longtime Startup CPG community member wildwonder just aired on Shark Tank, and today, founder Rosa Li joins us to share all the details. You don't need to pre-watch the episode to enjoy the conversation, but I definitely recommend giving season 14, episode 11, a watch to see Rosa make a $500,000 deal with Tony Xu, guest shark and founder of DoorDash. Listen in as Rosa shares about the process of applying for Shark Tank, how recording day works, the timing from recording to airing and how she and her team prepped, the details of the deal made on air and the post-show diligence process, how wildwonder sales grew post-airing, why she was hoping for a deal with Tony Xu, and how wildwonder hopes to leverage the DoorDash relationship, and more. We recorded this less than a week after the episode aired on ABC and on Hulu, so this is hot off the press. Hi, Rosa. Welcome to the show today. How are you?
Hi, Jesse. I'm doing well. Very excited to be here.
Yeah, I am so excited to have you here. I discovered wildwonder, I think at Expo West last year, and became a huge fan. I loved all the flavors. And so it was so fun to get to see wildwonder is going to be on Shark Tank. And so it was so fun to get to watch and see you on TV. And so I'm so glad that you're here today to share more about the experience. It's so fun.
Thank you. Yeah, Expo West was obviously the first show. I mean, last year was the first show after COVID, so everyone was super excited to be there, and we were just so happy to see everyone. But yeah, and Shark Tank was such a surreal experience. I'm happy to share more.
Awesome. Yeah, well, if you could start us out by just telling us a little bit about yourself and about wildwonder, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, happy to. So just to start, wildwonder is a bubbly and delicious beverage that's inspired by these healing tonics from my Chinese grandmother. So I actually talked a little bit about this background on Shark Tank. My grandma raised me for the first 12 years of my life and brewed a lot of these healing tonics with a symphony of wild herbs and plants that were really good for me. She taught me the philosophy of food as medicine from an early age. So prior to starting this business, I worked in finance. I worked a lot of stressful jobs and started to really feel the effect on my body, mostly my gut. So I actually got my microbiome checked, read up a lot about gut health, went back to grandma's homemade tonics, and became a true believer in gut health. So after I went to school, I went to business school at Stanford. I actually decided to pursue something I'm personally passionate about. So making gut healthy and heritage inspired ingredients accessible and delicious for everyone. So that's when I brewed up wildwonder. And I would like to say that it's, a combination of grandma wisdom and the concept of a California produce stand. We are based in San Francisco, Northern California. We have a lot of fresh produce here. I love going to the farmer's market. And to me, I'm a huge foodie. So everything comes down to taste, and all the fresh produce. I want to make our drinks taste super delicious and fruit forward, similar to what you will find at a California produce stand. So, a lot of these gut healthy beverages like kombucha, drinking vinegar have that acquired taste that's super fermented and vinegary. It's not for everyone. So I really want to make these functional ingredients accessible by making these drinks really delicious and approachable. So that's really what differentiates us, is really the taste as well as the functional benefits being, having both prebiotics and probiotics in one can.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. And the flavor really is incredible. Like you said, it doesn't have that, you don't need that acquired taste for a fermented beverage. It really does just taste like fresh fruit. Like strawberry passion is probably my favorite. And Yeah, it's just like drinking those fruits like you had just bought them at the farmer's market and juiced them yourself. Like it's really incredible the flavor you've been able to achieve.
Thank you. Thank you. That's definitely our top seller. And it's also Mark Cuban's favorite, as we found out from the taping. Yeah, I love that. That's actually our newest flavor is fresh brewed hibiscus flowers with strawberry juice and passion fruit juice.
Awesome. Well, before we jump a little bit more into Shark Tank, can you also kind of describe the stage of Wild Wonder? Like, how many retailers are you in? Maybe some of the major ones that listeners might know, and like how many employees do you have? Just kind of curious about the overall stage you're at.
Sure. So we're in over 1,000 stores now. So we actually grew very fast last year. We started the year being just a California brand, meaning we're distributed in California retailers like Whole Foods and a lot of the NorCal, mostly actually focused on NorCal specialty retailers. We launched in Southern California at the beginning of the year in January. And then by the end of the year, we were national with Sprouts. We launched on the East Coast with the Fresh Market. We launched in the Midwest with Fresh Thyme. So we became, I would say we became a national brand. We also sell online. We sell on Amazon as well as direct to consumer on our own website. We are also in a lot of the corporate offices, cafes, restaurants. So we have a multi-channel strategy. So retail is not just our core focus. We also focus on online and food service as well.
Nice. Awesome. That's great. Yeah, really fast growth. That's amazing. So at what point when did you apply to Shark Tank versus like when the episode is airing? I believe it can be quite a long process. So was that amidst all of that, like all the growth that's been happening?
Let me think back. Someone actually reached out to us from Shark Tank. I think Shark Tank has all these people scouting companies, and one of the casting producers reached out and said, "Hey, I think your company will be a good fit for Shark Tank. Would love to have a chat." And he pretty much convinced me to apply, and I was very skeptical because I didn't actually watch the show before. So I heard about Shark Tank and I thought it could be good for my business. And, we're a small team. You asked me about the stage. We're actually only 5 people. And so everyone does a lot. And I just thought, hey, anything like that would take up so much time. And I didn't know it'd be worth it or not. And the answer to that is definitely yes. But now I know. At the time, I believe was summer. It's actually like March or April of last year. So they reached out to me and I went through the initial screening process. I submitted an application, a video of myself explaining what the company does. And then once they selected me, then, I moved forward to the next round of process. Is a long process. So I don't know if you guys share more about Shark Tank from other people's experiences. There's just different stages of the application process. And every stage, they would always tell you, just so you know, there's no guarantee that you're going to move to the next stage. There's no guarantee that even if you move to the next stage, you'll tape. And there's also no guarantee, even if you tape, you'll air. So there's a lot of just you're taking a lot of risk with this, but it's also a really fun process. The process is very long. Once I was moved to the next stage, I met with the producers, and I would say it was Zoom call like once every 2 weeks for 3 months straight.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. So when did you actually tape the episode that we just saw?
Yeah, I taped in September.
Okay. Wow. And then how much time did you have to know when it was going to air? Like how much notice did they give you? Like, hey, your episode's airing on this date, and a confirmation that like your episode is indeed going to air? Yeah.
So there's no, even after taping, they still told me, hey, we don't know. And there's no guarantee. But they, as a rule, like they always give brands 3 weeks notice. I actually received the news that we're going to air on Christmas Eve. So I woke up and I was like, oh, this is a nice gift from Santa. And I was super excited because, we spent so much time preparing, and it was a lot of, I flew down to LA and I took time away from work just to do this. And my goal was really to air and to have the brand be shared with a national audience. And that was basically mission accomplished to me. So I was super excited. I told my team, but obviously everyone was on holiday at the time, so we couldn't really do much at the time. So once we got back to the office in January, we started preparing and really just all hands on deck, getting ready for Shark Tank.
Yeah.
And just so you know, like the season goes from, I believe it was the very end of September to all the way to like April, May. So anything that was taped the year prior, so September, July, so there's only 2 tapings, either it's July or September, that all of those will be shown from end of September to the following year. And they always overtape. So there's actually a lot of companies that don't get aired.
Yeah. Wow. That's wild after all that work. But I'm so glad that you made it on air. That's so cool. Well, I would love to hear a little bit just about the actual experience of being on the show. Recording. I assume that they recorded a lot more footage than ends up on TV.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, the episode was 8 to 10 minutes. Everyone thought that like I basically closed the deal within 8 minutes. But I was in the tank, I believe, over an hour. My producers, after I walked out, told me I was in there for a long time, at least an hour. So I felt like it flew by really fast, but they definitely grilled me for way longer than 10 minutes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. How much prep did you put into your into your pitch and into like having answers for questions?
Yeah, so I would say Shark Tank and the producers really prepare me for the pitch itself. They didn't really prepare me or any candidates for the actual Q&A process. So I would say there was a lot of time spent on the actual 2-minute pitch, which was at the beginning. Every single word had to be approved, basically. And if I made any claims, especially given it's a functional beverage, I had to have backup to support it. And there's a lot of like legal process involved with anything that's, aired on national TV. I would say, there's a lot of prep with getting the booth ready. There's just prep in general, like getting the entire display, getting everything approved. The Q&A was actually more just, me watching Shark Tank and previous episodes. Like I mentioned earlier, I actually didn't grow up watching Shark Tank and didn't really know what the show entailed. So the producers basically told me, hey, go watch all the beverage episodes, which was what I did. And just to figure out, what kind of questions are asked. Most of them are business related, which I do know. I mean, if someone were to ask me, hey, how much does it take to produce your product? Obviously, I would know the answer. And usually the typical questions are pretty basic. It's like cost, price, what's your distribution like? Why did you start the company? I can't actually remember everything they asked me, but it's I would say it's nothing unexpected. Just being prior to starting this business, I was an investor myself. So I think, the questions they ask are what I would expect an investor would ask. And this wasn't the first time I talked to an investor or investors in general. So it's, I think that part was fairly easy.
Yeah, that makes sense. And can you talk a little bit about the deal that you did on air? And like, it was amazing. You negotiated like live, which I'm always so impressed when someone can like counter and everything. Cause like just on the spot, that sounds incredibly hard. So like, tell us a little bit about the deal you started with and then the deal that you ended up making on air.
Yeah. So I walked on stage with an offer of, I asked for $500,000 for 5% of my business. And if you watch enough Shark Tank, you would know that they always cut your valuation in half. So like, if you're like, oh, I want 5%, they'll be like, I want 15% or I want 10%, So, I would say don't start with something that's like too low of valuation because they're going to cut it even lower. But also don't start with too high of a valuation because they'll just make fun of you. So I think, I basically talked to my producers and said like, what do you think about this? And they thought it was reasonable based on, I guess, the offers that were shown on Shark Tank previously, the stage of my business, and it gives me some room to negotiate.
Right. Yeah. And so what was the final deal that, at least on air, I know, which we can talk about, I know sometimes there can be negotiation after on air, but on air, what was the final deal?
Yeah. So Tony Xu, DoorDash CEO, countered me with $500,000 for 9% of my business. I countered him with $500,000 for 6%, but with an additional 3% advisory shares to get to his 9%. I tried to negotiate, and this what you don't see is like all the details. I tried to negotiate something else, and he basically said, "This is my final offer." And I was trying to get to his 9% without cutting my valuation too much. So that was the idea that I came up with is advisory shares.
Yeah. Can you explain a little? So with your finance investment background, can you explain what that means with the advisory shares, like what the difference is?
Yeah. So essentially they own equity of the business, but that part of that that doesn't affect the valuation. So you say, if you're cutting my valuation in half by going from 5% to 10%, then essentially it diminishes the company's value and dilutes every investor and myself and my employees at the company. But if I'm saying I don't want to change the valuation, but I'll still give you the equity, the advisory shares essentially come out of the options pool. And then I have about 10% options pool allocated to share with employees, advisors, anyone that's helping with the business.
Okay. So do advisory shares then operate like on a vesting schedule where you're getting them over time?
Correct.
Okay. Very interesting. Yeah. And, making a deal also with the guest shark, like that's like if you could watch as many past episodes as you want and you don't know what necessarily a guest shark is going to ask. How was it interacting with Tony overall? We saw some on the air, but, overall, what was that like?
Yeah, definitely. He was definitely a wild card because I had no idea what type of questions he was going to ask or how he was going to negotiate. I definitely went on stage going after Tony Xu, going after his money. So I would say he will be the one, and I knew he would be the one that could bring the most value to the business. DoorDash is a huge food tech platform, as you know, and there's over 1 million restaurants on that platform. And the value add will be distribution. So beverage distribution, as a lot of sharks talk about, is very hard. So having such a national platform to get our products to all the restaurants is tremendously helpful. So, and Tony alluded to this. I'm not sure if this part was actually aired, but in giving his offer, he actually shared all the things that he could do for Wild Wonder, which was super exciting. He could put us on DoorDash. So imagine do you use the app yourself?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So, you look at a restaurant, you were going to order food, and then usually people like to order a drink or so with their food, unless maybe you have beverages at home. Any restaurant menu doesn't really have that many beverages. So you can scroll down, you might see Coke, you might see water. And if I were to say, hey, I want to sell to a restaurant, I have to sell door to door to get on their menu. Whereas DoorDash could just, more seamlessly put us on a lot of restaurant menus. And I think that's a lot more efficient to gain distribution. That would be a huge value add. One of the things I talked about was stocking his offices because we do stock a lot of offices. And I'm actually having a conversation with DoorDash tomorrow about that. So very excited to just, build a partnership with DoorDash, and I can't wait to see where this goes. He is truly the shark I was going after. I actually was more excited I told myself actually he would bring more value to me than to my company than any other shark, even including Mark Cuban, who has invested a lot in food.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. That's so cool that he was who you were going after and that's who you made a deal with. Like, had you ever met him at alum? Because I think he went to Stanford too, right? I think he mentions that on the show.
Yeah, he actually said that. So we both went to Stanford for business school. He was 1 year above me. We never had any class together, but I knew him and he remembered me from just being at Stanford. So he actually mentioned that, and I was actually a little taken back by the fact that he remembered and he talked about it. And what you guys also didn't see, this was I don't know if I'm actually allowed to say this, but there's a bunch of stuff that they cut out and they didn't air, and he I think the reason that they want me to pitch the Shark Tank when he's a guest shark is because of our shared background. He's Chinese American, also has a similar immigrant story. And when I talked about being raised by my grandma and coming here with very little and making something of myself. He also, that really resonated with him. He actually shared his own story. And I'm sure like they cut out that part because they've already done like, an episode on him and sharing his story. So I thought that was really awesome that he actually connected with my story. And I think that's part of the reason that he invested is because he was really impressed by her progress. He was really impressed by, what I built, given the background as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. And it just goes to show that like you never know who's like paying attention when you're going about in the world. Like you can be in classes in school and like, years down the road somebody's like, "Oh, I liked the way you showed up in the world and now you're doing amazing things." Like that goodwill goes a long way. So that's so cool. I love that. Yeah. And like, what you mentioned a little bit, like you have a call tomorrow, like what happens after the show airs? What are the kind of the next steps from here?
Yeah, definitely. And this is something I didn't know as well. Like when I watched some of the previous episodes, I just assumed that a deal is made on TV and then that's done. There's actually a lot that goes behind the scenes because the minute I walked out of those doors, that's actually the first time the sharks see me. So they have no idea who's going to pitch to them. They have no idea like what the pitch is about. They have no idea what the company is. They also don't know anything about my background. So, which means that there's actually diligence that needs to be done. So, they hear about my story for and my company for what you saw was 10 minutes, but it's really an hour because I was squirreled for that long. But an hour is nothing to really learn about a company and a founder. So there's also a lot of diligence work typical to a fundraising process where you would send them financials, you would send them a lot of the answers to any questions they may have, anything about business. I mean, I don't know if you heard about this instance, but there's actually Mark Cuban actually talked about this on TV at one point. He put money in a business, or he promised to put money in a business on Shark Tank. They actually did a lot of back and forth afterwards, and they were ready to sign a deal. And all of a sudden, the company was MIA, and he kept pushing and trying to find the founder. And a few months later, they realized that guy was in jail. So because Shark Tank, there's not really a lot of diligence done beforehand outside of maybe doing a basic background check. There's a lot of work to do after the deal's made, and then you have to sign the term sheet. And so it usually takes longer than people think.
Yeah, that makes sense. So does that start like right after you recorded then? Like, all right, you made a deal, we recorded, like whether or not this airs, we're going to start doing the diligence process essentially. Is that kind of when the back and forth starts on that?
I would say it's different for every company. It's different for every shark. So it really just depends on how busy everyone is. But usually it starts at some point. Afterwards, like the producers would say, hey, like this team's going to reach out to you. So it's that's not really definitive.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And how have sales been for your team since airing? Like, what's it been like on the operations side to fulfill, I'm sure, some increased demand?
Yeah, no, it's been super crazy. I mean, it's definitely more than I expected. I mean, I knew that Shark Tank was going to be good. I didn't know it was going to be this good. I mean, we were out of stock on Amazon within 2 hours, and we stocked Amazon to the max. So, I mean, gosh, I think we for online, we're going to make an entire year's of sales in 1 month. So it's something that it's very overwhelming in a good way. Our fulfillment center, our 3PL has been just working the entire weekends since 6 a.m. every day to catch up on, sending all the boxes that people ordered. We had told them to even pre-pack over 1,000 boxes, and we're still very behind. I think we just finished Saturday's orders. We're still working through all the other orders and telling people, hey, just be patient. We're seeing a huge uptick in order volume, so we're doing our best to send out everyone's orders. My team actually supported the 3PL or 3PL by physically going to the warehouse and packing with them.
Nice. Oh, that's amazing though. Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. And I assume 3 weeks is not very much time to prep. Like, did you kind of make any educated bet preparation of like, well, we might air on Shark Tank in this next season, so let's prep some things just in case? Like, how did you think about prepping in, since you knew that if you were going to air, you were only going to get 3 weeks notice, and that isn't really a lot of time when you've got to make product, ship product to a to a fulfillment center, all of that.
Yeah, I mean, we the good thing is we're not new to Amazon, we're not new to D2C, so the process has been fairly smooth. We definitely updated our website with Shark Tank related images. We made special Shark Tank bundles. I would say those are the only thing that's new in terms of fulfillment and shipping. Everything has actually been done before. I do think that there's Amazon is the beast, and it's hard to figure out. We had some surprises from Amazon side, so that's why we're out of stock in such a short period of time. We basically stocked to our limit, and they just, there's very little customer service at Amazon. They wouldn't increase our storage limit. So the good thing is we actually had D2C pretty much ready to go, and we were able to get way more orders on our own website. So that's actually probably a good outcome for us, because we do love having more of a direct relationship with our customers. So D2C allows us to do that, and we actually understand them better. We can reach out to them directly, whereas Amazon, we just don't know who those customers are. So I guess it was kind of like a blessing in disguise. We were able to generate so much more sales online on our own website from Amazon. Not to say like Amazon didn't generate a lot of sales, but it's still, we basically responded very fast. We only had FBA open, so fulfillment by Amazon. So we would ship products to their warehouse. They will fulfill everything. And because we were out of stock within 2 hours, we actually turn on FBM, which is fulfillment by merchant. And then we're able to actually respond to all the sales requests on Amazon.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. I guess this is, ops person question too, of like, with only 3 weeks, like, I don't know what your lead times are to make your product. Like, did you kind of be like, well, we might have a lot of sales from Shark Tank. Like, did you plan on producing more just in case that happened, or did you have to work, to manufacture some last minute?
Yeah, we definitely produced more. We knew that we were going to air on we didn't know that we were going to air on Shark Tank. But we were actually growing as a company even without Shark Tank. So we started scaling on inventory side, and we generally like to hold about 3 months worth of inventory. So that was super helpful, because we, at the end of last year, we had produced a ton of products because we're just growing so fast, even without Shark Tank. So we were ready. Basically, from a products perspective, we had products. So that was nice. I honestly didn't know we were going to air so early. I was thinking, okay, beverage, this is more of a summer drink. Maybe they'll air a little bit later, which is also nice. January is usually a big month for us, regardless, because of, this is a time when everyone's trying to be healthier after feasting over the holidays, and we have a healthy beverage. And it's also a really nice alternative to a cocktail. So a lot of people actually view Wild Wonder as a mocktail option, given just the make of our product is basically fruit and botanicals, basically what you would put in a mocktail. So the sober curious, sober living community was really into it. So we were already seeing like uptick in sales. I was just surprised to get that email from Shark Tank on Christmas Eve about this airing, which, I was very happy about, because I was just hoping to be aired.
Yeah. Do they give you any like indications of like when people launch or when beverages launch, like this is about how many sales you get? Or did you reach out to other like beverages that you'd seen launch to be like, how much should we expect? Like, or is it just kind of like, well, every product hits different? Like, I'm curious if you get any prep from the producers and everything on like, here's what to expect as far as, what you're going to see for orders.
No one knows that. And Shark Tank doesn't know that, because every company has its own story. So I have noticed, though, that if just from talking to other brands, people who have done Shark Tank, if the sharks like the product, then you just have way more sales than if they didn't like the product. If the sharks like the founder, you have way more sales than if they didn't like the founder. So much of that is dependent on just the editing and the airing and how everything looked during that 10 minutes. So I'll tell you, Mark Cuban, I don't know if you remember, he chugged the whole can of strawberry. And he actually said, "Oh, I hate kombucha. This is great. I love the strawberry passion. I already finished it." As soon as he said that, our strawberry passion sales just like shut up. And I was looking at our sales allocation, like out of all the single flavor packs, like strawberry passion just outperformed everything else significantly. And because he just loved that flavor and he had mentioned that flavor on TV. So here's your Mark Cuban impact.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. And like that kind of leads me to thinking like when you were applying for the show, and it sounds like there's a lot of back and forth of like making it to the next round and like is there anything you can share about that process or that you think helped make Wild Wonder stand out? Anything that you did that you're like, oh, that seemed to really help us make it to the next round because it's extremely competitive. And so, was there anything that you were like, that you were intentionally doing of like, okay, here's how we can be more entertaining or creative? Like, how did you think about that process as you went through trying to get to each next round?
Yeah, it's been a while since I did this. So I'm just thinking back. I would say the story really matters to them. This is for national TV. The audience is actually a lot of families. Surprisingly to me, I mean, it's not surprising, but I didn't actually know who the audience is because I didn't watch Shark Tank. And from just this past experience, I realized that there's a lot of people that watch Shark Tank and of all ages. It's a very family-oriented show. So I would say, people are generally very attracted to a good story. It's not going to be something that's like very technical, and it's not going to be, it's going to be a consumer product, right? So something that's more accessible and more approachable. And there's a ton of consumer products out there that aired and that got on Shark Tank. So I would say, because it is for TV, it's all about entertainment. So the story really matters, and just being able to tell that story. So I do think that Shark Tank producers do a really good job helping me to craft that pitch. It's a pitch that I've told many times when I, talk to retail buyers, when I talk to investors, but they're very good at, I would say, condensing the story into 2 minutes to really bring out the essence, to really make something that's very appealing to the average consumer.
Yeah. And that your point earlier about mentioning that first 2-minute pitch really had to be that script had to be nailed down and approved for national television. That was really interesting to me. I didn't realize that pitch had to have that back and forth to make sure that everything was totally cool to say on air.
Yeah. I think there's some like FCC rules about what you can and cannot say. I don't think you can make too many claims unless you can back that up with research or human studies.
Right. Yeah. And did you have to have like a round of fundraising open to be on the show? Did you have a round open when you were going back on the show, or was it its own separate thing?
You don't have to, as long as you're actually accepting funds from investors. Like you can't just go on TV and say, "Hey, I'm going to raise money," when you don't intend to raise money. But outside of Shark Tank, you don't have to have a round. You don't have to raise money from other investors.
Right. But you had done some fundraising before, I think. I can't remember if you mentioned that on the show.
Yeah. They did ask me, how much I raised before and if I'm raising at that time, which I did answer. So just happened that I was actually raising money and I had a round open and I gave them a better deal than my actual round, because I knew that they would be not so happy if they realized that I'm not giving them extra value.
Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Well, that's so cool. Is there anything else you want to share about Shark Tank before I want to leave some time to talk about some other new exciting things coming up for Wild Wonder? But anything else you wanted to share with us about the Shark Tank experience?
I think you captured all. I mean, that was such a very exciting, very surreal experience. I actually hosted a watch party to share that moment with my team, my friends, my team's friends. So everyone was super excited to really share that moment. It was actually as of a surprise to me as everyone else. I mean, I knew what I said in there, but I didn't know how they were going to edit it. So it was super fun for me to watch as well. And I definitely encourage everyone who has a consumable product to get on Shark Tank.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah. Well, so what's coming up this year that you can share about? What should we keep an eye out for?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to Expo West, so I'm really looking forward to seeing everyone there. We actually have 2 booths this year, one in North Hall, one in Hall E. Because we're launching a new product, and then we just have so much. We have a lot of distribution expansion opportunities coming up as well. So very excited about 2023. This is going to be a great year for us.
Yeah. Have you already gotten some, you don't have to say who, but have retailers been excited about the Shark Tank publicity? Have maybe moved some retailer conversations forward?
Definitely. Yeah. I can't disclose too much until we actually launch, but there's some exciting stuff going on.
Nice. That's amazing. Well, excited to keep following along. Excited to see you in person at Expo West. I definitely encourage everyone to go to drinkwildwonder.com and then follow, the same handle, Drink Wild Wonder, on Instagram and I think TikTok.
Yeah.
And then available on Amazon, and there's a store locator on the website. So get some Wild Wonder into your life for sure. And yeah, thanks so much for sharing your experience with us. I know that it's always so exciting to talk about Shark Tank, and just really appreciate you sharing your wisdom and experience with our community. I know that everyone will really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jessie, and thanks for having me. It's super exciting to share that with everyone here.
Thank you for listening in today. I'm so honored you joined me for this conversation, and I love hearing from you all with feedback, suggestions, or if you just want to say hi at podcast@startupcpg.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn. If you liked this episode, we'd love for you to share it with a friend or colleague, subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and maybe even leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. If you aren't yet in our Slack community of founders and experts, we'd love to see you there. You can get the free invite at startupcpg.com and find all our other awesome resources there, like webinars, databases, the blog, the magazine, and virtual and in-person events. And if you found yourself rocking out to our intro and outro music, which I do every single time, make sure to check out the Super Fantastics on Spotify. It's the band of our Startup CPG founder, Daniel Scharf. I'm Jessie Freitag, your host and producer, and on behalf of the whole team at Startup CPG, thank you for being here and see you next week.